If you are over 65 and you wake up most mornings with stiff knees, heavy shoulders, and a tiredness that the night did not touch, I need you to listen carefully. There is a slow fire burning inside your body, and it is not the one your doctor is watching. It is the one that lights itself in the hour before you sleep, and it is the reason you wake up feeling like the day has already used you. In the next 15 minutes, I am going to show you the bedtime ritual the old masters used to put that fire out. I am going to share the one biological change that happens after 65 that almost no Western doctor will mention, and I am going to tell you about a woman from Iowa who could not pour her own tea, and the rancher from Montana whose hands had stopped working, and the small piece they were both missing that brought them back. Most people are doing this in the wrong order. Stay with me, because the order matters more than the pieces. My name is Jian Chen. For more than 50 years, I have practiced the medicine of my grandfather and his grandfather before him in the mountains of Sichuan province. I began my training at the age of 14, when my grandfather first placed his hand on my wrist and told me to listen to what my own pulse was saying. Today, patients still travel to our village from many countries to sit on the same wooden bench where I sat as a boy. You should listen, because what I am about to share, I have watched work in 5 generations of bodies. My grandfather had a saying he received from his own teacher: all disease begins in the belly. He would press his hand to his stomach and say it twice, so I would not forget. The old masters understood this long before the laboratories began their counting. The root of the body sits beneath the navel. The root governs the inflammation. The root governs the sleep. The root governs the way the morning feels when your feet first touch the floor. But here is what my grandfather could not have known, and what most modern doctors will not tell you. After the age of 60, something happens to that root that no breathing exercise alone can fix. I want you to think about your body as a garden. For most of your life, the soil beneath the navel was rich. It was full of small living organisms, the bacteria that break down your food, calm your immune system, and quiet the inflammation before it can travel to your joints. There were trillions of them. They were the gardeners of your insides. Now here is the part that almost nobody hears. By the time you reach 65, you have lost roughly 50% of those bacteria. Half of them gone, not because of anything you did wrong. The body simply stops producing them in the same numbers after a certain age. A study from the University of California followed more than 14,000 adults over 60 for 11 years and found that those with chronically elevated inflammation were 43% more likely to lose their independence within a decade. 43%. And the single strongest predictor of that inflammation was not weight, was not exercise, was not even diet. It was the state of the soil beneath the navel. This is why the slow fire keeps relighting itself. No matter how many anti-inflammatory pills you take, you are putting out the smoke without rebuilding the soil that prevents the fire in the first place. Hold on to this. We will come back to it, because it is the piece 9 out of 10 people get wrong. Now let me show you the bedtime ritual itself, because the soil cannot rebuild while the fire is still burning at midnight. The problem most people over 65 carry to bed with them is what the old texts call lingering heat. In modern science, this is chronic low-grade inflammation. It does not show on a thermometer. It does not flare red on the skin. It moves quietly through the small vessels and the joint linings, like smoke from a fire that was never quite put out. Each day, the body lights small fires through the meals, the worry, the standing too long at the sink, the sitting too long in the armchair. A younger body puts these fires out before sleep. An older body cannot, because the gate that releases the heat has narrowed. When you lie down at night with these small fires still burning, the body cannot enter what we call the deep cooling phase. This is the hour, somewhere between 11 at night and 3 in the morning, when the body is meant to repair the joint linings, calm the vagus nerve, and rebuild the lining of the gut. Think of it like a kitchen at the end of a long day. The cooks must finish cooking before the cleaning crew can come in to scrub the floors. If the stove is still hot at midnight, the cleaning never happens. The next morning, the kitchen is dirty, and day after day, that dirt builds up until what was once a clean room becomes a place no one wants to enter. Most people try to fight this with melatonin or sleep aids, but sleep aids do not put the fire out. They only make you unconscious while it keeps burning. Therefore, the inflammation that a 40-year-old body could shed by morning becomes the inflammation that a 70-year-old body carries forward into the next day and the day after that. This is where Eleanor came in. Eleanor was 72 years old, a retired school teacher from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She came to me last spring with a complaint I have heard 1,000 times. She told me she could not remember the last morning she had woken without pain. Her hands were stiff before her feet touched the floor. Her knees protested the first stairs. By the time she had brewed her tea, she said, the day already felt like it had been used by someone else. Her doctors had checked her thyroid. They had measured her vitamin D. They had asked about her diet. But no one had asked her what she did in the hour before sleep. And what she did, like so many older women, was sit in the cool blue light of the television until 10, then climb directly into bed, with the heat of the day still trapped in her chest and her belly. I taught her the cooling ritual. Within 6 weeks, her morning stiffness reduced by 60%. But here is what most teachers will not tell you. And here is the part of Eleanor's story that matters most. 60% was not enough. The other 40% stayed. Her hands still trembled when she lifted the kettle. She still woke at 4 in the morning with that low ache behind the ribs. Therefore, I knew the fire was being cooled. But the soil was not yet being rebuilt. We will come back to her in a moment, because what happened next is the whole point of this video. First, the ritual itself. 45 minutes before you intend to sleep, you sit, not on a chair, on a low cushion, or on the edge of your bed, with both feet flat on the floor and your spine soft, not straight. You place one hand below the navel and one hand on the chest. You breathe in for a count of 4 and out for a count of 7. 10 minutes only. The longer breath out is the gate. This is the gate the old masters spoke of. It signals the vagus nerve to release the day's heat downward, through the belly, through the legs, into the floor beneath you. After the 10 minutes, you drink 1 small cup of warm water, no larger than a teacup, with a small piece of fresh ginger steeped inside. Then, before you lie down, you rest your bare feet against a cool surface for 5 minutes. The wooden floor is good, the stone tile is better. This is what the old masters called pulling the heat downward. The body's heat in the evening gathers in the chest and in the head, and if you carry that heat into bed with you, the deep cooling phase cannot begin. But the ritual is not finished. There is one final piece, and this is the master practice. This is the one I have been waiting to share with you. The old texts speak of a moment that happens just before sleep, in the last few breaths before the mind lets go. They call this the threshold. What you carry across this threshold, the body remembers all night long. If you carry tension across, the body inflames. If you carry calm across, the body repairs. Most older folks cross this threshold while watching the news, while turning over the worries of the day, while replaying conversations from the afternoon. They are crossing the gate with their fists clenched. So once you are lying down, you place your right hand over the lower belly, beneath the navel. You speak one sentence in your mind, slowly, 3 times. The sentence is your own. Something like, the work of the day is done. Or, this body has carried me well, and now it may rest. 3 breaths, 3 repetitions. Then you let the hand fall. Researchers at a hospital in Boston followed 860 adults over the age of 60 for 4 years. Those who practiced a slow self-directed phrase before sleep showed a 38% reduction in markers of systemic inflammation compared to those who simply turned off the light. The old masters had only smiled when I told them of this study. They had watched this for centuries. They knew that the last thought before sleep is the thought the body sleeps on. Now, if you have been with me this far, and you are starting to think this might be the most useful thing you have heard about your body in years, please tap that small button below to subscribe. Most older folks searching for the old ways never find this channel, and your tap helps them find their way to the bench. It is 2 seconds and it costs you nothing. But before you go anywhere, you need to hear what happened to Eleanor. Eleanor did the ritual every night for 6 weeks. She got the 60% improvement I told you about, but that stubborn last 40% would not move no matter how perfectly she did the breathing or the cool floor or the slow sentence. And this is the wall almost everyone hits because the ritual cools the fire. It does not rebuild the soil. So when she came back to me in late spring, frustrated that she had hit a ceiling, I told her what I have come to tell every patient over 65 who reaches that wall. For most of my 50 years of practice, when patients ask me, Master, is there anything I can take from the inside that supports this work? I told them only what my grandfather told his patients. Eat the fermented vegetables, drink the bone broth, tend the belly as you would tend a garden. But the modern world is not a village. Most of you cannot ferment your own kimchi each week or simmer bones for 12 hours on a Sunday. And more importantly, after the age of 60, food alone cannot replace the bacteria the body has stopped producing. So I went looking. For 3 years, I tested formulas. I rejected most of them. The ones with only probiotics, the ones with too many strains and no understanding of how a strain actually survives the stomach, the ones from companies that did not understand what my grandfather understood, which is that the gut is a garden, and a garden needs 3 things, not one. What I finally landed on is called BoochBod. The old masters would have understood why this works. They would have looked at the formula and nodded because it carries the 3 pieces every garden requires: the seeds, the soil, and the harvest. In modern language, the probiotic strains, the prebiotic fiber that feeds them, and the postbiotic compounds, which are the actual healing molecules the bacteria produce when the soil is right. Most products on the shelf give you only the seeds. You can plant seeds in dead soil all day long and nothing will grow. This is why probiotic pills alone have failed almost every patient I have seen over 65. 2 of the strains have been studied for many years. They are called Lactospore and Postbiotics LM1004. Inside the formula, my grandfather would also have recognized the dandelion root from the high meadows. He used to dig it himself in the early summer, and he called it the river inside the body because it carries away what the day has left behind. It is a gummy, not a pill, and I want you to hear me on this because I know how many of you are sitting at the kitchen counter each morning with 7, 8, 9 pills lined up beside the coffee. I know how the throat tightens at the thought of swallowing one more capsule. The gummy is not a marketing trick. It is the form that older bodies actually take, day after day, because it does not feel like medicine. It feels like the small sweet thing your grandmother used to keep in a tin by the window. Eleanor began taking it with her cooling ritual in late May. By the 2nd week, she told me the 4 in the morning ache behind the ribs had stopped waking her. By the 4th week, her hands were steady on the kettle. By the 3rd month, she wrote me a letter. Master Chen, she said, I had forgotten what it was like to wake up and feel that the day belonged to me. This is what the ritual plus the soil rebuild can do that the ritual alone cannot. I want to tell you about one more patient, Robert, a man of 78 from Bozeman, Montana. He had been a rancher all his life. When he came to me, his hands had begun to shake in the morning, and he was no longer able to saddle his own horse, which had been the one task that gave his days their shape. He told me, Master, if I cannot walk out to the barn at dawn, I am not sure who I am. I taught him the full ritual. He did it for 2 months. The shaking improved, but like Eleanor, He hit the wall. The hands were better, but they were not his hands. So I gave him the BoochBod, and I told him what I am telling you now. The fire is one thing, the soil is another. You must tend both, or neither will fully heal. By the end of 3 months, he had saddled his horse 7 mornings in a row. His hands were not perfect, but they were his hands again. He sent me a photograph. He was sitting on the horse, and he was smiling like a man who had just been given back something he thought he had lost forever. The company offers a 60-day guarantee. 60 days. If you take it for 2 months and you do not feel the change, you write them and they return your money. There is no risk to trying. The link is in the description below this video. Over 30,000 people are now taking it each day. And please, before you begin, speak to your doctor, especially if you are taking any medications. Now let me close with the 3 small refinements most patients miss. The first is timing. The cooling ritual works best when it is done at the same time each night, within a window of 15 minutes. The body learns the gait. After 2 weeks of consistent timing, the falling asleep itself becomes easier. But here is what most people get wrong. They do the ritual when they remember. The river that flows steadily wears the stone, my grandfather used to say. The river that floods and dries does not. The second is the temperature of the water. Warm, not hot. Hot water restimulates the digestive fire. Warm water, the temperature of your own skin, settles it. If you cannot tell, dip your wrist in. If your wrist feels nothing, the water is right. The third is the most important. Do the breathing seated, not lying down. The body does not release heat in a horizontal position. The heat must travel downward, and gravity must help it. Sit upright for the breathing. Lie down only at the end, when the hand goes to the belly, and the slow sentence begins. And one warning, no phone during the ritual. The blue light is one thing, but the deeper problem is the small flicker of cortisol that arrives with each scroll, each notification, each piece of news. The cortisol relights the fire you are trying to put out. Place the phone in another room before you begin. Dear one, hear me now. The body you have carried for 70 or 80 years still knows how to heal. The garden is not dead. The soil has only grown thirsty, and after 65 it has grown thinner than it was. It is never too late to water it. It is never too late to rebuild it. I have watched women of 75 and men of 82 find their way back to the deep sleep of their younger years. I have watched a grandfather who had stopped lifting his grandson because his back would not allow it lift the small boy again at his birthday in October. You are the gardener of this body. You always have been. If you do nothing else after this video, do this. Tonight, before you sleep, sit on the edge of the bed for 10 minutes and breathe. 4 counts in, 7 counts out. Drink the small cup of warm ginger water. Cool your feet on the floor. Place your hand on the belly. Speak the sentence 3 times. And tomorrow, while you are thinking about how the morning felt, click the link below and look at the BoochBod. Read about the strains. Read about the 60-day guarantee. Decide for yourself whether the soil beneath your navel deserves to be rebuilt. Most older folks will go to bed tonight with the fire still burning. You do not have to be one of them. The link is waiting in the description whenever you are ready. May your night be cool and your morning be your own.